Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capsule. I'm Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small, and it's a beautiful morning. It is, but something interesting happened to me on the way to work. I hit a pop, and I wasn't sure, because I'm around the savannah. This has never happened before. I hit a pop. It was a bit too similar to a gunshot, so I was kind of left like, okay, what was that? I'm not sure. Then I hit another pop, a slightly different note. It was a little bit lower, but again, it was like, it's not so much that I expected to be a gunshot on the savannah. It was just in these times, you can't take anything for granted, right? And certain guns, they don't sound like how they sound on TV. You know, they actually sound a bit thinner, hollower, more high pitched. You know, somewhat, you know...
it's disturbing how
it doesn't sound as dangerous.
You know how guns sound in reality, yeah?
No, well, you watch a few documentaries, like, it all depends. So in open air, certain guns, especially certain types of weapons that are popular, that like some of the assault weapons that are being banned, they sound more innocuous than you would think.
But ultimately, what
I'm not sure. I don't know if it just happened that a car rolled over a plastic bottle just the right way to give it the right sound, or somebody's tire popped, or I don't know, or something lost pressure somewhere, something that some random object that's pressurized lost pressure that I don't know about. I don't know.
I guess they're looking for the weasel this morning after those two pops.
I guess.
But it's Friday, so look a little happy, look a little bright. And because the weekend is right around the corner.
It's just, I didn't expect to be having to ask myself the question. It's not the fear, it's more the concern. It's like, were those gunshots? As I'm driving away.
No, well, I think it's valid and fair. You cannot now underestimate any pop. I think even sometimes randomly in the middle of the night, there are instances where people suddenly find fireworks, or they've stored fireworks that they haven't utilized over certain seasons, and they're popping it up, and you wonder, is that fireworks or is that gunshots?
Yeah.
You know, and the day that Trinidad and Tobago gets accustomed to the tune of music of gunshots in all these areas or villages, we've gone through. I think we're already down a slippery slope, and we're heading there very quickly, but thankfully we're not, the sound of music is not gunshots just as yet. But if we were to speak about instances of crime and controversies here in Trinidad, well, there certainly are a few that have been raised over the last few days, of which we will now get into with the Daily Review.
So one of the topics we want to get into this morning was actually a topic that we weren't able to get into yesterday, and that is, of course, the comments by one pundit with regards to what demographic group he thought was the cause of the crime terrorizing around Wes. And he made a claim basically saying that urban youths were responsible for crime against East Indians, urban youths from the East-West corridor. Now, that claim has gone on to now garner heavy disagreement from different sectors of society, including, I believe, both Michael Pear as well as Collis Hazel. I think those were the two senior officers that spoke out against it, saying, well, look, we don't have any evidence saying that the crimes are targeted. And in their estimation, it's just about crimes of opportunity, soft targets, if there's a perception that by criminals that, look, I could get away, or it's an easy mark, or it's relatively safe for me to try to rob from you, attack you, invade your home, whatever, then they will come after you. And it's not based on any sort of racial scenario, which I actually would, to some extent, agree with for the most, almost completely, actually. I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that crime is racially targeted. Somebody else who spoke out against it was, oh gosh, I don't want to get his name wrong.
Well, there were quite a few people that spoke out against it, actually. But while you're actually looking for that particular detail, just to clarify, it wasn't one pundit. It was actually a group of 5 pundits, and then there were 2 that spoke out and had similar messaging. One was Dr. Ramachan, Pundit Dr. Ramachan, and then you had Dr. Satyanan Maraj, who I had the opportunity to speak to earlier this morning on AM Prime. And before I get into that, let's just have an understanding that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, in its part, will always try to downplay certain things, right? So we have an understanding and we recognize that. That's not the issue here, but in the context that you've raised it, let's just say that many a times they don't necessarily give detailed information, they just try to downplay things. So get that out of the way. I think he gave clarification this morning. He said that the exact term that he used was urban youth gang member. And he says that the media reporting took it out of context. For me, I think even if you're using the term urban youth gang member, you then went on to say that East Indians are the targets in Arangwes, because Arangwes is a predominantly East Indian community. I'm always actually very split between whether we should say Afro-Trinidadian or Indo-Trinidadian, whether or not we should just stick to the term Trinbagonian, right? I'm always split about that. I've always said that before. But I also believe that his comments and the pundit's comments, though he was saying that it was urban youth gang members, the mere fact that you've already said East Indians are under attack or under siege, we can already put a meaning to what he was alluding to. Though those words did not come out of his mouth, one can interpret it a certain way because of what he continued to suggest. Furthermore, in my opinion, though he gave some clarification, I also believe, in my opinion, following this conversation, that the comments were ill-timed. There was no need for such comments at this point. He's suggesting that how we shouldn't shy away from this. When do you want us to make comments? There are issues here in Trinidad and Tobago which we tend to ignore. And I'm a firm believer that there are race relation issues that we tend to ignore. But again, the comments were divisive. It is, you need more comments of unity in these times. You can argue, and there are people out there who I've seen the commentary on social media, I've seen the commentary in newspaper articles where people are supporting the pundit's comments. My thing is, he should have spoken of Arangwes on a whole. If you want to make, because at the end of the day, if we're being honest with each other, he is a pundit. These are 5 pundits, predominantly East Indians or Indo-Trinidadians or Trinbagonians.
I don't hear about many non-Indo-Trinidadians that are
associates with the Hindu faith, right? And the mere fact you went on to say East Indian, you've also kind of split the community of Arangwes to a certain degree. In my opinion, you should have spoken about Arangwes as a whole, or you should have spoken about Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. And even though you're defending the comments and you're saying it's taken out of context and people want to see race where racism doesn't exist, I think the moment that you put the terms East Indians in your context and then urban youth gang members, and you came up with all this commentary, ill-timed, unnecessary, and I could understand why people are interpreting it as racial.
The thing is, again, yes, you are very correct. Once you say attacking East Indians, that means you are defining an us. So then it is almost unreasonable to expect people to not interpret your words as East Indians are the us, urban youths are the them, and if one group is being defined by race, then the other group, which is using a term that normally refers to one race, most likely is defined by race. So now, I will always say don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence. If the pundit basically came out and said he made a mistake with his phrasing, but you're right, the key point is the fact that he identified an us based on race, not based on area or based on some other type of demographic that would not just pinpoint or lead us straight down that direction. So if it's unintentional, this is, again, when you're speaking to the public, you have to be very careful. However, I have a hard time believing that to some extent it was not intentional. And maybe it's not that it's a racial statement, maybe it's just an insensitive statement. There's a fine line between the two.
Precisely.
But it's still an insensitive statement. It's still not that great. It's not that much better, really.
That is why I needed some level of clarification for urban youth gang member, because is it that, and he was very careful, and he's also suggesting that people want me to pin the tail on the donkey. Those were his words. I think for me is it that we are now associating a certain race or a certain skin color to an urban youth gang member? Because even if East Indians are under siege, not all crime is reported. There are crimes that are reported in the newspaper, and the description of the perpetrators are that of Afro-Trinidadians, right? And that's the argument that he's making. But the thing is that you also cannot actually be blinded by the factor. I'm not saying fact, I'm saying the factor that because I don't have statistics and he didn't have statistics, and I don't think the TTPS has statistics. So I can't say it's a fact, but you cannot underscore that there may be East Indians who are involved in these gangs, and I'm pretty sure that they are, and East Indians who are maybe are not pulling the trigger, but maybe are the ones that are in the background calling, certain things or dealing with certain things. You cannot underscore that as well. So to me, even though you are making the argument that if you take a look at the headlines and these are what's happening, great, okay, in those particular instances, yeah, but when you have another family member, when Indo-Trinidadians are always fighting over land disputes or something like that, we don't speak out about that often enough. When Indo-Trinidadians involved in crimes, we don't speak out about that. And if you want to turn this into a racial issue, again, he's saying, I'm not trying to turn it into a racial issue, but I'm trying to raise the conversation that it's something that we've ignored. Again, as a man of the cloth and somebody who sees yourself as a leader, you have to be absolutely careful with your communication.
We are too influenced by other parts of the world, by foreign media, particularly America. And one of the things that happens, not necessarily the same way, is correlation being confused with causation. Because, yes, to some degree, one could make a reasonable case that, look, most urban gang members of African descent, whether it's in TNT or in the States, right? Now, does that mean that there's something criminal about the race? No, you can't make that statement. There's a whole host of complicated factors that lead to that scenario playing out, right? But the flip, and it goes on further. You see it in America where they want to utilize crime statistics and make correlations with regards to race relations and say, well, this is the cause of racism, and look at this, and look at this, and look at this. But crime is more complex than that. And I honestly believe that for the most part, a lot of what you see with regards to crime and race, it's generally, the racial factor is more than of a coincidence, in my opinion, than say the socioeconomic factors, or just cultural factors with regards to not racial cultural factors, but a specific location, like compared to another, and how they treat with certain things. It's not about the race that lives in an area, but like this specific area, whether it is white, black, mixed, whatever, has a certain type of mindset. And then how is that translated? And then on top of that, we also have the correlation, causation of, well, just because you're from a hotspot doesn't mean that you're engaged in crime. That stereotype doesn't really work. You can't generalize everybody. It's really a minority. So all of these things with regards to analyzing has to be very careful. But the problem is, and this is where the influence is an issue, we see it online, on TV a lot, where they just make those quick, easy, low-hanging fruit judgments. Oh, well, because this statistic, that means that we have this problem or that problem, whatever. Whereas I say, no. Why is it that the crimes are being committed? I think the TTPS at least has identified one relevant factor, and the fact of the matter is the pundits need to understand that, look, if there's a crime situation in Arangwes, it's because Arangwes is a tempting target. And it just so happens, as you said, there's a majority population there of one race. So you're going to get most of the victims of the crime being of that race?
I also, I always like to be fair. And in being fair to the pundit, he also raised the issue of the education system. He's also raised the issue generally of the social factors within society and the family setting. So he did make some good points. The unfortunate thing is it's overshadowed by everything else.
Those points matter. But then now if you try to correlate it too much with, okay, well, this race does well in academics and that race does not do well in academics, to some extent.
Which he didn't do in this particular interview, but there are instances before which one could say he has alluded to it.
People, you see, where it gets bad is when you take it a step further. Because of that, they're jealous of us and all of that nonsense. Yeah, then we go in a bridge too far, or maybe more than a bridge too far. But
he hasn't gone to that extent.
Well, hopefully it doesn't get there, but I'm sure that they have people who comment, the rum shop commentary, somebody somewhere will make those comments.
And somebody's already going to interpret what you're saying. You see rum shop
True,
commentary.
okay.
No. I'm not saying you're wrong in what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying how we are as a society now.
It's the term.
It's just the terminology, what is associated with.
We don't have any other bar term.
And this thing about, you see this, you saying that, and somebody will go and say, it's a dog whistle showing, But I think that is where we'll conclude. I think later on, ladies and gentlemen, when we open up the phone line, you can share with us your thoughts as to the comments made by these pundits over the situation in Arangwes. Some people are already upset that it is getting the media attention and it is not necessary. I think in instances like this, it is absolutely necessary because it's an opportunity for us to try and stamp out this issue here in TNT where this division lies. We need to try and stamp that out.
Here's the thing. I understand why people say that, because racism will always exist as long as it is a topic. As long as the divisions is a topic, there will always be racism. But like you said, the key point is we can't just ignore it, because it will grow. Those of us who don't want to speak about it, it will grow on its own. And
that's the argument that the pundit is making. That's the argument that he's making. No, if you get the opportunity, watch the EM Prime Minister. You have to understand, I am not defending these comments.
Yeah.
I have been against these comments. I think all the communication could have been better.
I think most times it is poor communication and insensitivity. I honestly think that. Okay, we're well over time. Folks, we have to take a break. When we come back, we will welcome our guests for Friday. Apologies for going so late. And stay tuned for more Talking Point, more important topics after this break.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival, Festival Grounds Blanchisseuse. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for staying with us. Now, if you've gotten tired of seeing Sean and I during the week, that's okay, we understand. We have a better-looking face joining us on the program this morning. Ms. Janelle John Bates, attorney at law and youth influencer, is with Sean and I. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You look like you're very happy today.
Actually, no, I'm very pensive, actually, this morning. I was listening to what you had to say, the new trending or burning topic this morning, and it has me perturbed, and it reminds me of the conversation we had last week.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
So remember last week, really, I was talking about profiling. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm talking about. Because the pundit, even though he used the phrase urban youth, I did hear, I heard that he did elaborate on a gang member, but the example, I heard a clip from him speaking, and he said, well, one of the people who were attacked, or one of the groups who were attacked, is 3 blacks or black boys or whatever who attacked them. It's not, I didn't send them there to do that. So even though he used the phrase urban youth, he really meant to say black youth. And to me that is obvious. And statistics, though lacking, I would say in this moment, may support, if we're using what is reported in the news, that it is black or urban youth who are committing certain types of crimes, maybe the home invasion. I don't think the comment was necessary at this point, because not only did he say it's urban youth, he goes on to say they're attacking Indo-Trinidadians, as if I don't think criminals are going to refuse your money because of the texture of your hair. Well, I don't think that comment was necessary. If he focused on Orangways, the point is that if the focus is Orangways, which is predominantly East Indian, it would be East Indians who are attacked, but they're not being attacked because they are East Indian, and I think that is the problem.
That's the crux, because we need to understand, look, yes, there might be statistics that say a high prevalence of crime in the Afro-Trinidad, Trinbagonian community, but that just means it's a different kind of problem to how it's presented here, right? And that's the other thing. That's how far, it will go that far. It will go far to say, well, they're attacking we, and it's a race war thing.
We already have a problem, which you agree with me sometime. I would say there is a problem with racism, despite how much we try to bury our head in the sands in this country. If he had just stopped as far as saying, well, I guess he said urban youth gang members are attacking communities in Trinidad, or even, okay, Orangways is my community, Orangways. may be understandable.
But this is precisely my point. If you spoke on behalf of the community as a whole, because this is the thing, it's not even Indo-Trinidadian. I know that people might say, Keeson, you're nitpicking. It's not even Indo-Trinidadian. He said East Indian, right? And from the time that he used that particular phrasing, you already put a definition to the term urban youth gang member.
But also, you're defining the sides in the struggle.
Exactly.
But and this is the thing, and you know, I'd like to further the conversation a bit. We had Camille Pascal on this program multiple times before. I've spoken to him about this issue, and I've often said it, that the way society is now and how society thinks. Imagine seeing an Indo-Trinidadian, a fair-skinned Trinidadian, an Afro-Trinidadian. We're all Trinbagonians at the end of the day. People are saying, well, look at that. This is racial harmony as it is. This is the perfect mix as it is. This is how society is thinking. And it is very unfortunate. I thought that as men of the cloth and as leaders, you're going to make comments that are more unifying. You have to bring society together.
You have to be careful what you say when you're in a position of authority and when your message will be transmitted. And then he's up in arms, because I heard him on another station, and quite frankly, I had to turn off the station this morning, coming on the road, because he was on a defensive. I didn't get the impression that he was trying to elaborate on what he was going to say, the true crux, because he's like, well, people only focusing on the Indian part, they're not focusing on. They weren't so up in arms about the people being attacked. That is not true. We are always up in arms about crime in this country. We just don't need to further push our already negative agenda that some would say is already being pushed by our politicians.
I think part of the problem is when you're inaccurate in diagnosing the issue, then we go down a path that, one, is not going to help the actual issue, right? It's just going to waste time. And
on
two,
satellite issues. Now we're focused on something as a satellite issue.
Two, it's going to cause more just conflict and disagreement and so forth. So if he wants to complain about the fact that, hey, the victims aren't getting the correct attention here, well, buddy,
focus on
you're the one. The root cause of that in this specific situation is technically the statements that were made, because that's what we're reacting to. Right? Again, if it was voiced differently, to put emphasis on the victims and to put emphasis on the actual problem of why is there crime in Aranguez? Because I think you want to criticize something, criticize it. Is there something about the police response time in Aranguez? That's where you could go. What is it about the community that's making it vulnerable?
Criminals see Aranguez as we say, soft targets. Because to me, criminality driven by most of these young youths, it's opportunistic. From my perspective, it's not necessarily as planned all the time. So again, we have to look at those things. Have they identified a particular vulnerability, a weak spot in Aranguez? And again, I was particularly perturbed because then the sentence I read was going on to, and that's why citizens need guns. So we already have a sort of racially tinged statement, and then we're adding guns to it, which is what we were talking about last week, which is why I said I do not trust Trinidadians to be given guns, carte blanche, and stand your ground, because we are a society on edge.
But it's already in that issue with stand your ground. I'm seeing it more and more being commented on social media with armed law-abiding citizens, give them the opportunity to have a gun, stand your ground laws within the household. And I'll be very honest with you, your concerns that you raised last week are very much valid, in the sense that even if you want to arm law-abiding citizens, at any moment something can happen where they might not have the rationality to actually use these weapons. You know, and
I don't trust that they will go and keep up with their training. Having a gun is an awesome responsibility. I do not know if I trust the average Trinidadians who have all these safety precautions in place to handle that correctly.
So in terms of this issue with race relations, and I actually had the opportunity to interview the pundit earlier, before Talking Point, and he's suggesting that he's seeing it as it is, and he says that's how people are misinterpreting his comments. So he defended it again, but he didn't necessarily elaborate. He went on to say, you don't hear St. Anne's or West Moorings, facing these robberies. These are exactly what he said. He says, but you're hearing it coming out of Aranguez, and when you read newspaper reports, it's predominantly a certain race of people. He's saying, but I'm telling it as it is, and we need to have a conversation about the issue of racism here in TNT because we're shielding away from it.
But
clearly, this is not the right way to go about having a conversation.
Way back in the day, some of the people, an older couple living on my street, I believe, their home was invaded, they were murdered, and their safe was taken, right? This is way back in the day before crime reached where it is now. So my community, right, which is close to St. Anne's, we have neighborhood watch, we have WhatsApp groups, we have the air horn, we have police officers. I had to check, do we have police officers that communicate? Yes, we have put all of these measures in place.
And that is why I say Orang. I think Orang is just currently a soft target. I don't think it's okay, let's go to Arangwes because they're Indian people there.
And granted, Cascade St. Anne's is a one-way in, one-way out scenario with a police station like right near the entrance. So that also makes it a very, this is not necessarily some target that I want to go into for a crime
is like
spree.
a many ways in and out, right?
And many ways in and out. That also makes you a soft target with ease access to road networks.
I think this situation has taken an unfortunate turn.
I would agree.
I firmly believe that there is an issue with respect to race relations of which we have to speak about, and we as young people need to do our part to try and resolve these issues. I think this is the absolute wrong way to even raise the issue or bring about the conversation. I do not agree with that. And furthermore, this is not a time where we need division. This is a time where we need unity. More than ever, we need a united Trinidad and Tobago. And even if you think I'm being philosophical, I'm sugarcoating a situation, no. We have to deal with our race relations issue, but not by, trying to divide each other even more. No. We have to try and solve it, but unfortunately, I don't think some people are understanding of how we should be communicating certain things.
Do we need a symposium on race relations?
Oh boy.
Do we need that symposium?
That's the real question, right? What issue was the pundit trying to tackle? The specific crimes in that area and help for the victims, or race relations? Because he says, well, we taking focus off the victims, but it seems as though he wanted to highlight a racial thing, and now that blew up in his face, he's changing his tune. Again, I'm not
changing his tune.
I'm not.
He's digging. He's
I
digging
think
down.
He's tuned with regards to the intention of his phrase of what he said. That said, I will say this again. I think a lot of times this is not about necessarily someone who is outright bigoted, just someone who is outright extremely insensitive and has no consideration for the negative consequences of what he says. He doesn't care about that.
Here's the flip side of it. He's saying you're talking about his what he meant by it. What was his intention? And to a certain degree, he actually addressed that as well. He says the media is not reporting what was actually said. For example, I didn't say urban youth. I said urban youth gang member, right? If that makes much of a difference.
That doesn't speak to his intention,
and then furthermore,
he's
he says, everything that I have said is being misinterpreted, and people are calling me a racist. Right, but it's being misinterpreted.
Did he single out the fact that the home invasion where they had the 3 men executed was done by only Afro-Trimegonians?
He focused on one of those acts and said it's not my fault that these people went and do that. And it's the tone of the explanation. People can judge you based on not only what you say, the tone of how you say it and the things that follow.
Okay, let me use an example if people will follow me. I understand why some people back when BLM was a new thing, a new movement. The All Lives Matter statement was so controversial because on one hand you did have people who just didn't know any better, just kind of walk into that. But on the other hand, it was used as a taunt. It was used as a counter-protest statement. So the key point is, I think to some extent, we were just we just made blanket assumptions. But again, he might be saying these things, but the fact of the matter is the intent behind them, right? When you say, well, it's not my fault that these people, you're drawing the lines whether you realize it or not on a racial level. So what do you expect people to interpret your intentions to be?
And my thing is, why the focus on their race? I think actually the urban part is probably more, he was right to do the technically is the urban, the living conditions, the socio-economic drivers for me is the important part, because then you make it sound like a certain race is predisposed to criminality. And that is the problem I have, that us against them, we are the good ones, you are the bad ones, you all are predisposed to behave this way, to criminality, and it's not because of their race. It's not a race
Yeah,
thing.
you could have an urban youth that is not, that's a non-black.
Mm-hmm.
But it can happen. It has happened.
Mm-hmm.
My concern as well, folks, is, and you said whether or not we need to have a symposium. I don't necessarily think a symposium might bear fruit. I think we need to have a paradigm shift.
I mean, that was a little joke.
No. I know.
But some people might actually take it seriously.
And that's why I'm saying I think it needs more of a paradigm shift, because my other concern in this issue is young people who are listening to this commentary, young people who would have heard what the pundit has said, or the pundits, sorry, because it's more than one.
Yes.
Young people who would have heard this, or young people being brought up in these communities, or with this notion or this thought that is being preached. That is what I'm scared for, because I'm trying to figure out a way as to how we can tell these youths, listen, even though this is what you're probably learning from a young age, and this is the environment that you're growing up in, this is not the case. This is not the fact, and the issue is what you're actually hearing. The issue is how you change your mindset and open up your eyes and realize, listen, we all the same. We all the same. Whether or not you want to argue, opportunities are different based off of your skin color. All of that we have to argue, and all of that we have to sort out. But young people from a very early age, when they're brought up in these environments, it doesn't help the situation down the road when we're trying to solve the issue now.
It is a paradigm shift, and I have to mention the infamous Satmaraj, who was gone, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, when he passed, because I'm sorry, in my mind, he was a racist. He pushed racial division. And when he passed, I thought, well, okay, well, things, we wouldn't have that voice always pushing a division. And then another person, I can't remember his name right now, I don't want to say it in case I get it wrong, took his place, and again, we still have that racial division being pushed by another person. So my thing is, it really does start from home, because if a child grows up hearing certain things, after a while, even if they keep fighting it, and they might see examples, they will see, well, mommy was right, mommy did tell me this, mommy did tell me that. So I don't know, it starts with the parents, and how do you change the mind of the adults?
The problem is, a lot of the time, statistically speaking, what they say is correct. Right? It's just that, okay, but your interpretation of what that means. Yeah, you have a statistic. The statistic is this happens on this rate, and this amount of people do this, and not so much. Right. But what does it mean? And the meaning that is then attributed to it, I think, is where it goes back to just because you have a correlation doesn't mean it's the cause. Like you said, the urban part, or the urban youth part, or the low-income urban youth part, if you really wanted to be properly specific, is probably a lot more relevant than race, because in areas where they don't have a large Afro population, you'll get crime from whatever is the slums or the ghetto, or the low-income urbanization, use of whatever demographic you have there. Whether it is natives in Hawaii or Alaska, whether it is, white kids in England or the UK, in certain parts, etc., etc. That's just reality of the situation. And it just so happens that, in a country where we have 40% of one race and 40% of another race, let's not forget who the last hanged gang leader, what race he was, right? We can't just...
That was too long ago, though.
I know, but still, like, when you talk about who the bosses are, it's funny, in this country, we don't have equal opportunity of crime bosses, because certain races are usually attributed to that position, right? And one of which I do believe, if you wanted to, talk about race and crime, we've heard about East Indian drug lords.
I think in this country,
we've heard about black gang leaders. Right?
We focus a lot on crimes committed by what I would call the small fish, the low-hanging fruit, the foot soldiers. We don't ever go up the chain. Who's paying for it? What's driving it? And those other factors. So, and if we go further up the chain, we might see a different sort of demographic, even if in terms, not necessarily in terms of race, but in terms of where they're from or whatever guides them.
Let me interject here. We have to go for a break in a moment, but very quickly, Janelle and Sean, our role as the media, do you think that we're only adding, fuel to the fire this morning by even extending this conversation? Do you think that we're doing that? Because there are some people that have argued, why is it that the media even gives these people the opportunity to speak? Why does the media even report on these things? Why does the media actually have to put the entire article? Forget about it.
Well, I think, yes, if there was no article, we probably would not have known about it. But there is an article, so it needs to be addressed. Because we can't just let somebody say something and leave it hanging in air. Because there will be people, there are a lot of people who agree with him. So I think it's our job to explore the other sides, give a different perspective. Is it a race? Talk about the issues surrounding it. And we might come to a solution about the issue. We might have changed the pundit's mind, perhaps, if we had that discourse. We might change someone else's mind. So I think the responsible thing is to dive into it and not be afraid to address it.
Well, one of the things is, if you don't speak out about it, you kind of just give unspoken consent. And then, because one of the things that I look for is, if a politician makes a claim, one of the first things I look for is, can it be challenged by somebody else? If there is no challenge, then that is the first, it's not the only area, but it's the first check mark of, is this credible?
Yes.
Because if they can't challenge it, then perhaps there is some credibility in what's been said. So if no one challenges things like this, it gives it far too much credence.
Yes.
So it's a catch-22, because like I said, when you're talking about racism, it will keep racism alive. That's just the nature of the beast.
Given the time that we have, and given that we're limited in terms of Janelle's time or the program, Janelle is a very busy lady, and we are privileged that she always makes the time for us. She's crossed off in her diary, Fridays for Talking Point. But let's get into the other issue that we raised yesterday.
Should I take a break?
No. We don't have time to take the break. So let's get straight into that issue this morning, which is with respect to the independence of the judiciary. And this was raised with two judges have argued that the Minister of National Security shouldn't be asking these questions, and this whole dispute over prisons visits and death row visits. Janelle, could you give some clarity over to exactly what the law suggests?
Okay, well, I want to quote directly from the law for this sort of segment. So when Madam Justice, the Honorable Madam Justice Gobin, said that judges do have the authority to go in prison at any time, she was correct. According to the Prison Rules 1943, and I believe those are the rules that are still in force, ex officio officials are, judges are considered ex officio officials, right? Official visitors. And according to Section 11 of the rules, an official visitor may enter and inspect at any time any prison of the territory to which he has been appointed a visitor, and shall be afforded full information on all matters connected with such prison, and shall be given free access to all parts of such prison and to all prisoners therein. So official visitors can go anytime and get any information they want, and judges are, by their position, official visitors. So she was right, they could have gone. But the power to do that comes from the rules, and the rules were made, or the minister has power to amend the rules. If we go to Section 17 of the Prisons Act, Section 17(1) of the Prisons Act says the minister may make rules for the better carrying into effect of the provisions and purposes of this act, including rules for amending or revoking the prison rules, and make rules providing for, and it's a long list, A to T. And if we go to I, the powers and duties of visiting judges, official visitors, ministers of religion, and prisons aid societies. And that is literally the section that the judiciary quoted. Mm-hmm. So this act, the Prison Act, which is the primary legislation, empowers the minister to make and amend and revoke the prison rules as it speaks to the powers and duties of visiting justices, official visitors, ministers of religion, and prisoners aid society.
So that's the Prisons Act, right?
The Prison Act, yes.
So the old act that is basically giving the judges the authority to
Not
visit.
the old act, it's the rules.
Sorry,
rules,
the rules.
Yes.
Okay, it's the rules.
Right.
But it's the same set of rules? Both of those things on the same set of rules, or different set of rules?
Sorry, you could explain that?
I think he's asking you with respect to the 1943 Act.
1943 rules.
Right.
And we have to be clear.
Right. No, and I'm glad that you are actually, because as I said, yes, I'm not a legal mind, so thank you for clarifying. But 1943,
right.
This is what he's asking in relation to this A to T list.
Yes.
If they are the same.
If they're on the same...
They're not on the same level of force?
No, the same rules, the same document, the same...
They're not in the same document. The rules are not, from what I can see on the Digital Legislative Library, they are not necessarily attached to the Prison Act. But the Act there were rules in force before we came into independence.
Okay.
These rules are still in force, but the Act is saying the rules can be made and amended and revoked by the minister. So the minister has that power.
Right.
To amend the rule. It's just that we've kept the rule that we always had. But the minister has the power, according to the primary legislation, to amend those rules.
But even if the minister has the power to do such, he has not done so. And is that where the controversy lies? Because he has not actually amended the rules.
No.
Is that where the controversy lies?
Right. Would it be that he has to basically amend the rules, or can he basically give instructions to judges?
But he's not, but that's the thing, the minister said he never gave any instructions, and
He inquired.
He just simply inquired, and to me, his explanation, if we take it at face value, makes sense. He said he just wanted to know the purpose, because he got an order saying that the judge will be visiting, but the order, one, did not speak to the fact that the judge had certain other judicial functions to finish in relation to the matter. It just says, well, he's coming, but he didn't know that the judge needed to come to assess the prison conditions in order to give damages to the prisoner. He didn't know that. He said, two, he wanted to put safety measures and make other necessary arrangements. And three, you are an official visitor. Yeah, you could come anytime you want, but you had media personnel who do not fall under the definition of official visitor. So he gave to me three very reasonable explanations or why he wanted that information.
Right.
Can a justice or a judge, without notifying the Minister of National Security or even the judiciary, could they actually go to the prison at any time, or notification has to be made?
Well, you notify the minister, you notify the head of prisons, because I would think it's just more practical to deal with the prisons as opposed to...
the order went to the Commissioner of Prisons, and I think some of these things are out of respect and chain of command. If a judge is coming there, I could see how you would want to know why they're coming, so you can make sure they have as comfortable a visit as possible. I don't necessarily see it as, well, boss, you can't come here, no.
No, but I think the problem is the Commissioner of Prisons, his letter to the minister basically said, well, is this visit even necessary? Something
well, he used the word purposeful.
Purposeful.
I think the word that troubled the judge was, is the visit still purposeful? And I could see on one interpretation, now again, we haven't seen the whole letter. We have heard a piece of the letter. So again, maybe the tone of the letter left us particular taste in the judge's mouth. So for him to feel like you are now stepping into or infringing on my judicial independence, perhaps. But the minister is saying, no, boss, it's not like that, you know. I'm just inquiring.
Well, here's the thing. So initially, I just thought, well, look, Justice Sipasat, he's kind of going from 0 to 60 a little too fast. It's his interpretation. It is what it is. He got the visit. My issue was the judiciary's response, which, okay, fine, it's in the Prison Act.
The judiciary took the response straight out of the prison
rules.
Which
was not, I don't know if it was reported to be from the Act or if it was just reported as a statement.
I saw the
so I don't know if...
They didn't quote the Act.
I didn't know if it was his writing that was at fault with that or if it was the reporting that was at fault with that. My thing was, I said it yesterday, I'm not going to walk it back. I have an issue with the Act stating that. Now, granted, with regards to safety, I did say with regards to safety, look, you have to give that in consideration. I don't care what your duties are. You're going into no situation to get people potentially killed, including yourself, right? And I could understand with the media, as much as the media should be able to go in there for transparency. It's a prison, I can understand that. But I still have an issue with the fact that I don't like how it defines the capacity to amend the rules, that the minister has to amend the rules.
But why is that? What is the
Because
problem?
I don't think the Act says with regards to, for the sake of safety or for things like that. It just says that the minister has the capacity to amend the rules. It's open-ended.
It says the minister can amend rules relating to certain things.
It's open-ended,
sure.
right? And, well, so the media person in me is basically saying how easy it is for a minister to say, well, no more judicial visits.
But you see,
because
why,
you can't amend the rules.
But why would we make the assumption that a minister who is a lawyer, in this particular minister is a lawyer, who would understand the concepts of separation of power, judicial independence, would make a rule that would infringe those principles.
But it's a certain extent, Janelle, it's also the same way that we've made the assumption that the Minister of National Security was being genuine when he said he did it out of concern for safety. Because, you know, I could interpret it in the sense that even though that sounds very good, it's an opportunity to see, okay, if the prison conditions are appalling right now, and this is what is it in respect to? It is in respect to a prisoner and
being kept in death row beyond the 5 years.
The problem is,
good.
Okay.
So the issue I'm saying is it's the same way that we're making that assumption that, okay, we're just doing this to probably try and ensure that the facilities, death row facilities, are actually, you know, better than they actually currently are. We're going to try and fix up certain things before the prison visit, you know. It's the same way that how we are making certain assumptions that there's genuine intentions. It's the same way other people could interpret it differently. And I don't give them wrong, given how things have always happened here in CNT.
The problem is, based on the nature of the case, right?
Yeah.
The minister who, if he understands separation of powers and all of these things, and if he's an experienced politician, he should understand how it looks when, you know, you are basically saying, no, I have the right to not let you go. Right?
But the minister didn't say that. Well, that's the thing. The minister didn't say, the minister literally, oh, okay, if we go according to the letter, just ask why you coming.
No, I'm speaking about statements made afterwards from the minister.
Which he
where
said.
One of my issues was, he basically said, well, because he is in charge of the prison, it is well within my authority and purview as the minister responsible for national security to ascertain the nature of the visit. Now, he didn't quote the legislature, which
he
to
said
some
it's
extent
within his authority to ascertain the purpose of the visit, and we are taking it a step further to say he is saying he has the power and authority to stop the visit, and I think we need to draw that line.
The irony is based on, I could be wrong, but based on how the section of the act is worded, right? Granted, he might not necessarily be able to just stand in front of the justice and say, no, you can't go. But to some extent, he could amend the rules to more or less say that.
I don't know if amending rules are that easy, you know. It is still delegated.
Well, then it makes the whole exercise of him receiving the letter and asking these questions a moot point. Why did he do so?
I think what we need to understand, and I'm grateful, Janelle, that you brought a certain level of clarification and understanding as to what the rules are and for what the rules permit, and even the power of the Minister of National Security. I think we accept that and we understand that. I think the conversation also stems for greater separation of power, greater independence. But I do understand the context of which you're arguing.
And that is something I want to touch on, this whole concept of separation of power, but I know the time. So unless you'll have to go for break, I can stay and give you 5 moments. I really want to just touch on separation of power.
I'll tell you what, we will go for break.
Okay.
And then we will come back and you can have that 5 minutes. We're actually happy for that. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. TTPS denies claims that Indians are under attack. Opposition leader disappointed with Prime Minister's response to collaborate on crime. Regionally, ExxonMobil gets environment permit for 5th oil project. And internationally, 13 dead after Russian missiles hit Ukraine. Now for the details. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is denying claims made by a pundit that East Indians are the target of crime. Pundit Satyanand Miraj and at least one other pundit made the statement earlier this week.
Well, everyone may have their reason for making a statement, but from the perspective of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I will not agree with that statement. I do not see anything along the lines of specificity when it comes to race, color, creed, or class.
Opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar says the current crime crisis demands that all leaders in the country exercise humility and prudence to protect citizens. She said the leaders must set aside vanity and egotism as too many lives are being lost and destroyed. She is calling on the Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to reconsider his refusal to the offers of cooperation from the UNC and all other interested and willing stakeholders in the country to address the crime crisis. Persad-Bissessar said she was disappointed that Dr. Rowley flatly refused to collaborate with herself, the UNC, and the former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, to reduce the violent crime crisis plaguing the nation. In regional developments now, just over 1 year after it applied, ExxonMobil Guyana has gotten a 5-year environmental permit for the Uaru project, what would be the 5th oil extraction operation in Guyana's waters, and the parent company insurance guarantee is defeated for the first time. In a statement yesterday, the Environmental Protection Agency said it had approved the Uaru Petroleum Development Project and granted the permit to ExxonMobil's subsidiary, SO Exploration and Production Guyana Limited, to undertake the construction and operation of petroleum production facilities within the Starbrook Block offshore Guyana. In international news now, Russia has launched a wave of airstrikes against cities across Ukraine, including Kyiv, leaving at least 13 people dead. 11 people, including a child, were killed in an attack that hit a block of flats in the central city of Uman. And a woman and her 3-year-old daughter were killed in the city of Dnipro, according to the local mayor. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah, hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us, and thank you very much for Janelle for the 5 minutes extra, because she is limited for time. So the floor is yours. Please explain to us this issue of separation of powers.
Well, before I get to the separation of powers, in our earlier discussion, it seemed that there was some concern about the minister's ability to just change the rules.
Right.
So I wanted to make it clear. The rules are what we call delegated legislation, right? According to the Parent Act, the minister may subject to affirmative resolution of the parliament. So the parliament still has oversight of a rule change. The minister can't just wake up in the morning, go and scratch out one line and add another line of his own. There's a process that has to be followed. So we could remove that hesitation and reservation there. Does that help put that to bed?
Well,
Parliamentary oversight?
I have a question with
Yes.
regards, because how this unfolded, it seemed as though nobody took that into consideration, whether it was Justice C. Persad and Justice Gobin, or the Judiciary and Minister of National Security. Because if it takes parliamentary oversight, it's a moot point. He can't necessarily stop you now for now. You can't stop him now for now. So I don't understand to some extent what's going on and what they're even debating for. But go to the separation of powers, because to me that's the crux of the matter.
Well, you would say that's the crux of the matter, but
well, for me,
Justice C. Persad sees it as a judicial independence question, which is slightly different. Now, the whole concept, as the layman would understand separation of powers, is that the three branches of the government, the tier, the executive and the judiciary, must exercise their authority without undue encroachment. Well, this is what it is, undue encroachment by the others, okay? But the layman or most people tend to think that there's this rigid, distinct separation of powers. But in many cases, it has been recognized that this sort of rigid distinction between the three arms is not one desirable or possible. There is an understanding that there may be overlap at times between the roles of the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. So I want people to, when we talk about separation of powers, it doesn't mean that one can't sometimes, I don't want to use the word usurp, but exercise some of the functions of the other. We are trying to prevent the accumulation of all three powers in the hands of one person. That is what the jurist Montesquieu would say.
The research that you're arguing, it's not desirable for whom? You said it's not desirable or possible. It's not desirable for whom?
Well, according to the case law, my understanding is not desirable for the population that should be so. Because, okay, let's take an example. The legislature is supposed to be the rule-making body. The judiciary is supposed to be the interpreter of the laws and the rules, and probably be a check on the exercise of power by the executive and the legislature. But sometimes the judiciary undertakes a lawmaking function by either saying an act is unconstitutional or delegated legislation is ultra-virus and stuff like that, well, or even due to their interpretation, they make law. So in that way, they are then becoming a lawmaking arm.
We're speaking in the instance of case law now.
Yes, but that case law, we are in a common law jurisdiction where case law is law.
No, so I know, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, so acts of parliament and case law are law in our jurisdiction. And then if we take the example of the executive, which is supposed to be the implementing body of the law, by delegated legislation, such as the rules, such as this act here, this section, which gives the minister the power to make rules, you have then now given the executive a sort of law-making role. So there are times when the three may exercise the function of the other. So that's why we're saying it's not desirable. Because if we were only to leave the legislature, for example, as the law-making part, rules and laws, it has been said it would take too long.
But if
it would take too long to develop the law any way it should be, so we would leave the executive to do the development in terms of rules and regulations.
But if in an instance, you're saying that it's not desirable or possible, but if in an instance, and on the argument that it's not possible, if in the instance where it's just completely blatant now that there is encroachment.
But is there encroachment? I remember it's undue encroachment.
Again, I'm asking in an instance, without being specific to one example or one state. If in the instance where it is obvious, then the argument of whether or not it is possible goes out the door. Because if we're arguing based off of the examples that you've just given, which I understand, there are going to be times, okay, great, I can accept that.
Right.
But if in the times that we're directing it this way because we so desire it to be this way and we want it to be this way and so it's just blatant, as they're saying, tentacles getting into everything, then therefore we're not even trying.
No, but I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. What I said is that the rigid division is always not desirable and possible. And there are legitimate times when one will exercise the function with others. You are speaking to a time where it's not a legitimate exercise of one person's power by another. There are times when it cannot be done. Like when we come to judicial independence speaks to the fact that a judge must make a determination on a matter without any extraneous influence, threats, inducements. So in that regard, you cannot have a situation where a minister, for example, calls up a judge and say, hey, I hear you're making a decision on this matter, whether this contractor should be awarded $500,000. If you know what good for you, you go in his favor. Clearly that cannot happen.
Or it should not happen.
No, well, it should not happen. It cannot happen. That is not an example of where we could say, well, you know, the minister could really call a judge.
It cannot happen
that cannot happen in that particular situation. So we have to just be clear. We just have to be sensible.
My thing is, given that I do believe this was to assess damages against the state.
Sorry?
This case, right, it was to assess damages against the state.
Yes, it was.
So, again, and maybe this comes back to my usual boogeyman when I criticize politicians with regards to communication. When a justice is looking, and if you didn't know what he was there for, then perhaps that's on Judge Sipasad himself. But when the case is with regards to excess damages to the state needs to be very careful in even hinting at the possibility, even unintentionally implying with the most innocuous of communications of, well, we have an avenue that we could interfere with that visit for that determination.
Yes, optics are important. Optics are important, but again, if we take the minister at face value, in this particular situation, he was saying, well, he didn't even know that there was any judicial function left. He's saying the order did not indicate that the judge still had to assess damages. That's what he's saying. So he's like, well, almost to say, well, if I didn't know, I would not ask. But
well, what does the order?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but
I mean,
the newspaper...
Yeah, that's one of the questions, right?
One of the newspapers did, I think, quote the minister saying what the order did say, and then him saying, well, it did not speak to the fact that there was an assessment of damages left to be done.
In this case, I think this is, because we've seen where the judiciary can be a check and balance to some of the problems we have with the criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm like, okay, that's where my concern is, because we've seen complaints, we've been a part of them with regards to, okay, the withdrawal of the list and how you're appointing a political appointee into the president. And, you know, there's a lot of gray area there when you get down to it, because it's not anything illegal. But the unfortunate thing is you don't want to kind of wake up and be like, oh, what happened? When did we go from gray area to, you know, straight into the red? And that's kind of how it goes if you don't ask the questions and sometimes kick up a fuss.
I just see this as an opportunity for education, for us to discuss certain things, delegated legislation versus primary legislation, the authority of the different arms of the government. I always see these as opportunities for education, and I wish we would take out this sort of antagonistic tone and seek to educate each other and the public.
You sounded like you're antagonizing a situation there.
That's a passive-aggressive antagonism, isn't it?
Janelle John Bates, it's always a pleasure. Good seeing you. And thank you for your time.
Good information.
And for good information, for clarifying certain things, because Sean and I don't know everything, and we know even legal minds.
Really?
So
I didn't get that impression. You all seem...
Really? we're doing it that well?
You're doing it that well.
Wow. Really? Okay,
yes.
Good. Yeah, I used to like her, you know. Anyway, Janelle, have a good weekend and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. Folks, we take a quick break here on Talking Point, and when we return, we'll get into the final chapter of this morning's conversations. Stay tuned.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this: screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah. Hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and thank you for staying with us. Janelle John Bates, well, we always appreciate her time and presence. But our directors have agreed to extend Talking Point for a bit longer this morning, and therefore let's open up the phone lines now. We'll give you the viewer the opportunity to call in and share your thoughts and opinions with us. You can comment on what we discussed this morning, anything actually that we discussed this morning. If there's anything else that you wish to share with us, or any other opinions or thoughts or topics, feel free to do so. Just kindly, because of the time, just be mindful the time of your contribution. Always be respectful to each other and to other callers. And finally, mute your television, please.
And we'll try to take as many phone calls as we can. And we have about approximately 50 minutes, hopefully, left. So please call in. I'm sure there might be some people that want to call in and say, Sean, you see, you didn't know what you're talking about. Call in, let's have that conversation. Just as my co-host said, be mindful on the time.
Caller on the line with us from Tobago. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Morning, caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kitan. Thank you, Sean.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Could we please close the talk back? Thank you. Go ahead, caller.
Sorry, say again?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I want to comment on the whole notion of racism. I've mentioned this before. There is no racism in Trinidad and Tobago. There cannot be racism between Indians and Africans. It's just impossible for there to be. Racism requires power. And neither group has the power over the other. Neither group can, because of the race of the other group, displace them, marginalize them, tell them they have to use the back door, they can't come in the front door, not promote them, not let them into their neighborhoods, and so forth and so forth. They cannot exercise power over the other group. Both groups are equal. Racism requires power. Same thing with sexism. Sexism requires power. If two people are of the same level of employment, and one is a male, one is a female, one cannot exercise sexism against the other. It takes the boss, the supervisor, somebody higher, somebody who could stop your progress up the ladder, somebody who could limit your hours of work, challenge the money that you're making, displace you. Because you're of opposite sex, they can know they're doing that because you're of the opposite sex. That's sexism. Racism is the same thing. Because you're the opposite race of another race, I have power over you. I'm going to now limit you, marginalize you, target you because of your race. That is racism. Racism requires power. There is no racism in Trinidad and Tobago. What there is bias, prejudices, but there is no racism, and we need
That's
to throw that word out.
That's an interesting point that you've raised, Caller. Thank you very much. An interesting interpretation. Have a good day.
I'm just going to say this, Caller. I understand where you're coming from. I think it's semantics for the most part, and ultimately it's not a position that I agree with.
We have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, Caller.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, you're on here.
Keaton and Sean. Yeah. The thing is that I believe if we could only come, especially with Indians and Africans, right? Regardless of the religion, the caste and the class and all these things, we could, if we learn to just respect one another. You understand? The things that you don't want me to say about you, you don't want me to call you a coolie, don't call me a nigger. You understand? Let me respect each other now. That is just the whole thing, you know. That's so easy, you know. Right. It's a very easy thing for me to deal with, you know.
All right, Caller.
And
very quickly.
The girl who you had there, I would like you to bring her back again. Thank you.
Yeah. She is with us every Friday. Always with us every Friday. I think, unfortunately, next week, due to her schedule, she may not be able to join us. But I hear your issue with regards to respect. In that same vein, please, I kindly ask all of us to be absolutely careful what we are saying on air, please. Though you are trying to make a point, we do not encourage or endorse derogatory terms. I did not cut the call, perhaps I should have, but please be mindful of what you are saying.
Yeah, even in the context of how you said it, it can't be said on air.
Yes.
It just can't.
All right, but we have a caller on the line with us from Pitty Valley. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
If you could remember yesterday, I called in on this same topic.
I was waiting on this call.
Hello?
Yes. Yeah, I was waiting on the call.
Yeah, and I did said yesterday, let's wait and hear from Janelle, the young lady there, or somebody to really clarify, because you all are not lawyers or scholars of law. Now, you all are not saying you all are very brilliant, do a good job, everything. I'm saying that, but when it comes to law, sometimes, Sean, you jump the gun and just shout statement. I think what your problem is, Sean, you don't have no confidence in Fitzgerald Hines. I wouldn't say you don't like him, but you don't have no confidence in him. So anything coming from him, you tend to be not optimistic, negative about it. So you rush and jump the gun. What the young lady explained this morning, now I understand. Yesterday, before she explained herself, I said, calm down, cool down, let me get some clarification on the law. That's all I'm saying. And you all have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. You too. That was just a very polite way of saying, I told you so. But we know we're not legal scholars.
First of all, I did say, if the law does say what the judiciary minister says, I'll say that the law is foolish. And then the second thing is, I think based on how the events unfolded, they weren't acting as though how Mrs. John Bates described the rules and how the act interacts with the laws. They were acting in a different way that implied a different meaning to what we were just told here today. But you're right in the sense of there was more to find out about the situation to better understand it. I do have a better understanding of it now, but my position ultimately hasn't changed that much.
Caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
You see, language is an issue in this country. How people express themselves and how people interpret that expression.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, that caller from Pitty Valley. I would say to Sean, I would just say, Sean went down so many rabbit holes this morning. It was amazing. I would not say what he said there. That is language. Now back to what the issue with Cara Gobin and Francie Prasad and Gerald Hines and what Janelle John Bates talked about the Prison Act.
Mm-hmm.
You know what is this? What is the crux of this issue? And nobody, including you guys, have not focused on this issue. in this whole debacle is that Mr. Justice Frank C. Prasad decided that he will take a journalist. Look at what he was going to do. He was going to assess prison conditions with respect to this person who was on death row over the 5-year term. And he took a journalist. He had ulterior motive, in my opinion. And nobody has zoomed in on this on that issue. But he took a journalist, a journalist was included in his entourage. And that is what they took issue with. Nobody's looking at that. The second issue is this thing with the pundits. When people are under attack in their communities, fear drives their response. And this is a response driven by fear. It is unfortunate because they are in the community that they are in. They are surrounded by a lot of urban depressed communities, and we know crime comes out of urban depressed communities. And as I say, it's an unfortunate response. Even though it is factual, it's an unfortunate response. But when you are under attack, these are the things that happen. So this speaks to the bigger picture of dealing with crime, because the same General John Bates are in those same areas trying to assist in mentoring these youths to get them to a better place. So,
Yes.
Caller, thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, caller. I think we have a call waiting after you.
We have enough time for 2 more callers, but just to respond to what you're saying.
I'm not sure if we lost a call or if that was his phone line.
But I want to thank the caller from San Fernando, especially for the point that you made with respect to Justice Frank C. Prasad there. You're right. That is
right.
That is a point that, including us off air, that we have not discussed. Sorry, on air. Off air, those conversations probably don't matter to the viewing public, but we have discussed the role of Justice Frank C. Prasad and Justice Carol Gobin and that situation, that point you made with respect to journalists off air. But that doesn't really matter. I thank you for raising your valuable points. Good morning, caller. We have another caller. Good morning.
Claxon Bay, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Sean. Morning, Keita.
Morning.
Yeah, on the topic of race, when you could have an inspector come on a television show and saying that is his black brothers and them children them doing majority of the crime. You could have a calypsonian and singing, kidnap them, do them this and do them that. I see on Facebook a woman or a woman come on and say, the coolie people them works with support and lies in their head, go into the house and do them this and do them whatever you want. Is that race? Is that come under race? I mean, they're inciting. I mean, the pundit might say it out of context, but he might say crime is for everybody, it affects everybody. But the majority of people doing crime is the black.
All right, caller, thank you. Those are some very controversial remarks that you've made there, and I'm not going to comment on it any further. Again, I ask, please be very careful. Share with us your thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, you use a term there.
But we just, gentlemen,
which was used before, but please, folks, when calling into the show, don't use racial terms or slurs.
Or anecdotes, anything.
Yeah.
Call on our final caller for the morning from Aruka. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Are you with us?
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Right. I could join the debate that is going on right now, but I wouldn't for obvious reasons.
Okay.
Hello?
Go ahead. What do you want to speak
me?
about? Yes, we're hearing you. What else do you want to speak about?
Thank you. And yeah, I could join that debate, right? I got the race talk, but not this morning. What I call it really specifically, there's something happened at Takariga Savannah. All right, that is a salmon tree that needs cutting before any disaster happens, because there are a lot of children that use that ground. That is the salmon tree opposite the Anglican Church in Takariga, area grounds. There's a big old tree there. It must be 100 years old, right? I don't know why it hasn't been trimmed, because I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. Right? With the heavy rain that we might get, I don't know, or winds or something like that, I think that it's time that the powers that be, either regional corporation or the Ministry of Works, I don't know who, to trim that tree immediately.
Excuse me, caller.
Anybody could pass and look at it and see what it's like.
Yes,
okay?
could you just...
I'm calling your station, hoping that people in authority will be on your program listening.
Before you go...
that tree, please.
Before you go, are you still with us?
Okay.
What side of the savannah, sorry, did you say it was on? All right, okay, so unfortunately we lost that.
Yeah, he did say it was opposite. Oh, I can't remember.
Yes, that is why I need a clarification, because you did state, and I'm sorry, it's out of my head, but I will review the footage after the show to get the idea, and thank you for raising that issue. We will actually try to be in touch with the regional corporation to try and deal with that matter. But that's it for calls this morning. Thank you very much to all our callers for their contribution. Thank you to that last caller for raising that issue. Again, the phone lines are now closed, so I'm sorry if we're not able to take any more of your calls. But we've gone over time this morning for that, because, again, we were privileged to have Janelle John Bates for that extended period.
But also to help explain something, it's a very important topic. My concerns on the topic is why I didn't necessarily look at the journalists being part of the entourage, but the caller, as you said, was correct. That is also something to consider.
A very important point, yes.
With regards to the whole scenario that you can't discount.
Caller from Stanford, I always appreciate your contribution, by the way. You always stir up another conversation or raise another topic that is often missed. So thank you for that.
One thing quick before we finish, I just want to ask though, are the pundits from the community? Because somebody did say that they could have been speaking out of fear.
No.
But if they're not from the community, I'm not too sure how willing.
The pundits are from the community.
From around, they live there. Okay, well then, okay.
So anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Talking Points for the final week in April, and we see you on Monday. Brand new chapter, brand new opportunity, depends on how you look at it. Brand new month, 1st of May. Sean, I hope you enjoy your weekend. And
I hope it rains a lot while I'm not out and about.
And I hope the only pops that you hear are pop rocks.
That's true, yes. Or fireworks. Well, maybe not fireworks.
No, we're good. People are not, some people unfortunately are not responsible and mature enough to handle fireworks or even know when it's time to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Talking Points. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much. Remember, today's a good day to have a good day and a great weekend ahead. I'm certainly looking forward to it. Please stay safe and keep well, and always live your life the best that you can. Be kind and respectful to others. And with that being said, should things go good? Sean, we really hope that they do.
You hold your breath every weekend.
Yes. We'll see you again on Monday morning.
What a way to live.
Bye-bye.